Okay, chapter 2. These follow from each other well because they used to be one paper, which is why it's easy to send them together because a lot of the first half is similar, so we can skip over. It's roughly the same sample. We start with the same sample. What we do here, though, is instead of looking just at credibility, it was what was originally a control variable, but it's now been carved out as its own paper, which is automated accounts or bots on social media. So this is when you have automated accounts and bots, what do they do both to the behavior of the stock and to the investor's reaction to it? Okay, if my slides will advance.
You might need to convert it to PDF, I think.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Stream slides.
Maybe when the Word will test out
Yeah.
It's possible to convert to PDF.
I know these ones have the fancy format to them. That might have messed it up.
Export option.
Yeah, thank you. So this is also with Mahnaz, my student. We have roughly 20 million tweets. So the other one was at the user level. This is more the analysis at the tweet level. Oh, will it work? If not, I can just advance it from the slides there.
Yeah, but it's really laggy when you do it like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was it, right? The top one?
I named it here.
I think it's
The first one, that's it though.
to the PDF. This one, the green line.
Yeah, that's it. That should be. Okay, wonderful, yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, simple research question, how do bots influence financial markets? More detailed question again, do information liquidity effects of social media on stock prices vary depending on whether the sources are bots or human users out there? We can skip some of these. So main hypothesis, posts by bots drive a liquidity effect that gets reversed over time, price pressure that's quickly reversed. Posts by humans are associated with this permanent information effect. That's our main second hypothesis going into it. So again, user profiles there. These are real people in a real post. Stock data, again from Chris, we get 22 million Twitter posts. We restrict S&P 500 companies, about 500,000 users. So it's the same raw data, but it's different once we clean and process the data here. Again, in terms of distributions out there, word clouds are just useful to see. Those are the biggest firms in 2019 to 2022 based on market cap. Microsoft, Amazon, Apple. These are the biggest firms. If you count tweets out there, Tesla dominates it. Now Tesla, of course, its market cap's gone up, so it's actually much bigger in terms of market cap. 3 short years ago, Nvidia's hardly even on there, so it changes quickly. And you got other firms, Johnson & Johnson, big by market cap, hardly shows up at all on there. So the coverage in terms of Twitter is very different. In terms of bot classification, if you're interested in doing it, there's a lot of different ways. We spent 1.5 years with all sorts of fancy machine learning algorithms to classify bots. They worked pretty well, but then we found you can just get off-the-shelf commercial products. So there's one called Botometer, there's several others. It's a lot easier to use, and it basically gives the same results because they're basically just doing the machine learning for you. So what they do is they have a whole model that classifies whether either a tweet or any other social media post, not bot emitters is just tweets, other ones do any kind of social media, how many basically standard deviations the result is away from their model, and then you can set cutoffs with that, and we can look at it a little bit, but basically, if you want to balance your type 1 and type 2 errors in terms of bot classification, you can get very different classifications. At one hand, if you are very lax, then 100% of users out there on social media are all bots. If you're very strict, none of them are, or hardly any are. So you got to pick some cutoff for how strict you want to be. For example, if you use an 85% kind of confidence level here, or cutoff, what you get roughly half and half. We kind of calibrated this because that gives half of social media users as being human and half as being bots. And the thing about traffic out there, it's not unlike microstructure trade data, that the vast majority of trades are actually done by automated algorithms. Here also, the vast majority of information out there on social media is done by bots, depending on how strict you want to be. So if you want a 50-50 classification of users, what you have is 97% of the traffic out there on social media is being done by bots and only 3% by humans. And I mean, more, I'd say reasonable classifications, over 99% of the traffic on Twitter is automated by bots and not by humans. So Twitter is basically bots talking to bots in the last 3 years especially, which raises questions, what is the information on there if it's bots talking to bots? Now part of that is the way things are classified. So we use a 90% threshold, which gives us about 38, 39% of Twitter users being classified as bots and the rest being classified as humans. So again, we varied that. Our particular results aren't so sensitive to it, at least in ways that, except for in ways you would expect it to be. The main results don't really change with that, but it's kind of a useful thing to be aware of if you want to think about this or make a trading strategy based on it. So idea here, model's kind of similar. Here we're both looking at abnormal log volume and also abnormal returns over different windows. For volume, we just look contemporaneous. And then we're looking at tweets. We're looking at the probability that these tweets have been generated by a bot. And then we look at the interaction between that. So we have a bot score at each firm day level, basically how much of each firm's social media profile on that day is apparently being generated by bots out there on social media as opposed to by real people. Same control variables in the other fixed effects, firm and stock. So what we find, simple results here. In terms of volume, and we really didn't know going this, do bots really amplify what's happening or do they suppress it? And on one hand, if you have more volume, you can get more of an impact, but how much is kind of declining with this boost you get from the bots. So when you have more tweets, again, you get a lot more volume. However, when those tweets are being generated by bots, it's not as much of a boost as you think. So we do confirm that it is a negative, and especially with the interaction. But even if you sum these coefficients, if bots are giving you 10 times more tweets, it's not going to give you 10 times more volume, but it's still going to give you whatever, maybe 8 times more volume. You can plug the numbers and figure it out. So it does suppress it somewhat, and depending, we do some analysis there that bots don't get you as much bang for your buck as human users, but they just are going to increase the scale so much that you do get more activity out there. In terms of returns, if we use raw returns, we get a comparable result that basically when you have more tweets, again, you get a bigger boost at, you get your absolute return on day T is bigger, but what we see here is if tweets are being generated by bots, it's almost completely balanced out. So if we take this here, 16.7 basis points, it's almost totally balanced out if you sum the two terms. When these are being done by bots, you basically you have almost no then excess return. And the same then if you look at day T plus 1, basically the bot score is going to be insignificant because everything's been balanced out here. That you don't have a price boost in terms of your return if that tweet profile is being generated by bots. So impact of tweets on returns is canceled out by bot activity is what we find, that even though volume is boosted, actual returns are not. But when we look at alpha, we get a different result. Basically, the impact of tweets on alpha and the reversal are both going to be really suppressed by bot activity. So when you have more tweets, we know that there is a boost in alpha on day T, which then gets at least partially reversed over time. However, this whole process is basically balanced out when you have bots generating those tweets. You don't get nearly as much of the boost in alpha, and you also don't get as much of a reversal because there's not as much to be reversed afterwards, is what we get there for that. So it's greatly suppressed. This is the kind of very short version of the results there. Okay, so what we get here for this one, cut it short. A large proportion of financial tweets are being generated by bots. Trading volume does not react to bot posts as strongly as to human posts, although they do still amplify volume. Impact of posts on raw returns largely does not apply to bot posts. So we do see that human posts are what drive the impact on returns, not the bot post, even though there's a lot of them out there. And bots suppress the impact of tweets on alpha, as well as on that subsequent reversal. So it seems that in terms of returns, even though bots are driving a lot of the traffic out there, investors of the market do largely pay attention to the human-generated tweets. So it does seem that investors can discern between human-generated tweets and bot tweets. And so if you want a trading strategy, drawing on social media data, which there's a lot of those out there, it's going to work a lot better if you just ignore the bot post and you filter them out. You'll get a much stronger signal then, which is perhaps not surprising, but we've quantified what it is there. Feel free, send me any comments or questions on it, or you can check out, Mahnaz has a lot of data and other stuff on her website there that you can check out if you're interested in the topic. Yes?
So how do you know a tweet is generated by bots?
There's different ones out there. A lot of it is basically automated reposting of certain types of news, and not all bots are bad. Like for example, a Bloomberg, feed, a Bloomberg news feed is a bot account if you have that set up on Twitter. So you can have something like that set up where it automatically sends you, the newest Wall Street Journal article. That's a bot account if you get it via a Twitter feed. However, a lot of them, we know that when there's a scam account, most scam accounts are going to be using bot software to basically send out, 100 Twitter messages to buy their crypto, or there's lots of pump and dump schemes that use automated accounts to basically increase their reach. And when you actually look at them and go into the data and look at them, most of them are pump and dump type scams. It's just saying, this stock is great, buy more of it. And they send out 1,000 messages. And it's kind of weird because sometimes those bot accounts, they'll send them out for like all 500 stocks or something, but it depends on the account. And so there's software out there that does that for you though. Yes.
But that could be interesting in your analysis, right? If you can somehow classify these bot accounts into, maybe it's Bloomberg, the story is probably going to be different than if it's an account.
Yeah, and classifying sort of which are the, malign and which are the benign bot accounts, that's what's hard to do because that's almost subjective.
Take out some known newspaper account that's just news aggregators or all that. So you could have a couple of categories for this and then a residual category. It's going to be difficult to have a pump and dump category, but then you can tell these.
Yes, and so
regarding this residual category.
We have a test for that now. That's not in the paper right now, but we have run it and we're going to add it in possibly as a separate paper, which is one of those things I've talked about a little bit to some people. But we look at when the electricity is out in Pyongyang. And when the electricity is out in Pyongyang, the accounts that we've previously identified as crypto scam accounts, most of them stop working. And there's just no activity for them. So we kind of have that as our exogenous test that we have in there. And we've done that with a couple different places. We did it with Pyongyang, Moscow, and China. China gives no result because most of the traffic from there is legitimate. Pyongyang, and if we use the right suburbs of Moscow, when they're out, a lot of the crypto scams drastically drop in activity. So we have that as one test, but that's becoming a separate thing because it's gone in other directions now.
Maybe one more question. Do you guys look at volatility? Sorry, I missed the first presentation, so maybe I missed some of that. But trading volume and returns, right? Maybe
Yes. We haven't looked at the types of Twitter accounts that drive volatility on its own. We've controlled for volatility as a control variable, but we haven't looked at it on its own as a dependent variable. Yeah, but that's something we could look at.
Because you don't classify the content of the tweet in the sense of this is good or bad news.
We can do simple sentiment analysis on it. So we've done positive, negative. We have that.
So what I like to look at also in these kinds of settings is volatility or absolute returns, because then you can be somewhat agnostic on the direction of the effect and show that at least there is something moving.
Yeah, we don't have that on its own. We have controls for the five days of lagged returns, which essentially captures a momentum effect, but we find that that's almost the same as bullish and bearish sentiment is what those last 5 days were. So we have that in there indirectly by having the lagged returns in the model. Yes.
You said that you did some AI analysis of the pictures.
Yes.
So where is that? That's not in this paper.
That's a separate paper.
That's a different paper.
That was the third chapter of Mahnaz's dissertation, actually. And it was really exciting, but we've struggled to frame it in a non-offensive way. Yes.
Like ugly people have less of
That's one of the results, yes.
Yeah.
That's one of the results. So we do that. Well, there's some interesting things. I can give you some preview of what we have on that paper because it's coming out. Yeah, so it comes out that the market is really racist, and it pays attention to basically the more male, white, and young you are, the stronger the market responds. Which the male and white is consistent with a lot of other information and theories out there. But we expected older white males to get the biggest response because that's what it is in other media when we looked at other literature. But in social media, at least, the market responds most strongly to young rather than old, which makes sense if you think of the user base for social media, but it's different for, say, other theories of who's perceived as the expert on a topic. And we have different theories and stuff like that that we've tested with it, and a lot of it comes out. But it's, yeah, but there's all sorts of issues with that we were still trying to clean up exactly how to frame it and present it. But interesting. Okay, there's one other thing interesting about that. It applies not just for real human pictures, but if you have, like, say, a cartoon picture. So we took as a case study Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse. The market responds much more strongly to Mickey Mouse than Minnie Mouse, even though these are obviously not real people. They're just, if you just use cartoon avatars, you get the same result out there. So we don't know if this is silly. There's all the evidence out there that AI and the internet are biased. And AI is biased because the internet's biased. But we find the same thing when we look at responses to social media. But that's a whole other story now. But that's also coming. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Well, that's the last academic session, right? Now we just have the other stuff.